Everyone in our culture wants something to say, but they're not willing to go through the pain, growth, and development it takes to have something to say. And that's why I think there's so many people talking today, but they literally have nothing significant to say. And so, again, leaders, be patient and let God develop you and let Him give you something to say through your leadership development journey. This is the L3 Leadership Podcast, episode number 254. Hey, podcast family, and welcome to another episode of the L3 Leadership Podcast, where we are obsessed with helping you grow to your maximum potential and to maximize the impact of your leadership. My name is Doug Smith, and I am your host. And in today's episode, you're going to hear a personal leadership lesson from me. And by the time you're listening to this, I will have just turned 35 years old. And every year around my birthday, I just like to do a reflection on where I am at that year in my life. One, because it's always great to reflect on what I'm learning in a season, but two, for me, it's always fun to go back and actually look at and see what I was learning at a certain time in my life, because then it allows me to see how much I've grown between that time. You know, when I go back and listen to podcast episodes of when I was 27 years old and what I was learning then, it's so fun. Because sometimes I think in life and leadership, you know, we can feel like we're not making progress. But when we actually take time to go back and look where we were just a year or two ago, it's easy to see enormous progress. And so I think this is an exercise that I've continued to do in my life that it allows me to continue to see my growth on an annual basis. And so if you've never done something like this before, after you listen to this episode, I encourage you, hey, whatever age you are, take some time and reflect and do this exercise. I think it'll add a lot of value. But before we dive into the lesson, just a few announcements. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Baritone Advisors. The financial advisors at Baritone Advisors help educate and empower clients to help make informed financial decisions. Find out how Baritone Advisors can help you develop a customized financial plan for your financial future. Please visit their website at Baritone Advisors, that's BERATUNG, advisors.com. Securities and investment products and services offered through Waddell & Reed, Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Baritone Advisors, Waddell & Reed, and L3 Leadership are separate entities. Hey leader, we tell you all the time that you should never do life alone, but in community. And so my question to you is, do you have a community of leaders that you can do life with? If you don't, I want to encourage you to become a part of our community, the L3 Leadership Community. And there's lots of ways to connect with us, but one I specifically want you to connect with is our membership platform. We've spent the last 4 months revamping and relaunching our membership site, and I could not be more excited about it. When you become a member of L3 Leadership, you're going to get to jump on live webinars with nationally known leaders, and we're going to be having these every single month for our members only. You'll have access to all of our L3 one-day talks. You'll have access to every course that we ever create and so much more. And all of this is available right now for free. That's right, we are offering 2 months of free membership, and after that, it's just $25 a month. And so, leader, let me just tell you, you need to invest in yourself, and we believe so much in the platform and that it will add value to you that, again, we're offering your first 2 months free. So you can learn more about membership and sign up today at l3leadership.org/membership. And with all that being said, here's my lesson on life at 35. Well, hey, podcast family, today I'd like to talk to you on a lesson that I'm calling Life at 35. And at the time of this recording, I am just 1 day away from my 35th birthday. And one of my favorite things to do each year around the time of my birthday is just to reflect on where I am at that age. I actually used to write blog posts every single birthday with a similar theme. And so it's fun to be able to do this in podcast format. And so I'm just going to be sharing with you how I'm processing life and leadership as I turn 35 years old. And so I hope that you'll enjoy this. I know it'll be fun for me to look back on this, 10, 15, 20 years from now and to see where I was at 35. So let's just dive right in. I have 10 thoughts that I'm processing as I turn 35. Here's the first one. At 35, I believe I'm starting to see the compounding effect of handling a lot of days well in my 20s. I'll say that again. At 35, I'm starting to see the compounding effect of handling a lot of days well in my 20s. And one of the things that I do every year, as many of you know, is I do a year-end review. Well, at the end of every decade, I do a decade review. And when I was 30 years old, and I actually did 2 podcast episodes on this, if you want to go back and listen to it, it's called Making the Most of Your 20s, I think. But when I turned 30, I did a decade review. And one of the things that God spoke to me when I was reflecting on the decade of my 20s, he said, Doug, in your 20s, I gave you a foundation to build your life on. In your 30s, I'm going to give you something to say. And in your 40s, I'm going to give you a platform to say it. And I love that he said that he laid a foundation to build my life on in my 20s. And I really think that that's what I was able to do in my 20s. And I think because I handled my 20s right, my 30s are going really, really well. And so let me just talk a little bit about this, Handling Your Days Well. A book that significantly marked my life in 2003 was Today Matters by John Maxwell. And the whole thesis of the book was this, that the secret of your success is found in your daily agenda. And it was when in 2003, I was 17 years old. This was when I started realizing how important it is to handle each and every day well. Here's just a few quotes that I love on handling today well. Leaders develop daily, not in a day. If you handle today correctly, tomorrow will take care of itself. Live in a way today that you'll be proud of tomorrow. And most recently, I heard this quote, live long and live clean. Live long and live clean. And probably the most famous by John Wooden, he said, make each day your masterpiece. And so what have I tried to do every single day since I started living intentionally? Well, every day I try to grow. I do something to grow and develop. I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm always reading books. I'm always connecting with mentors. Every day I add value to people. Hey, every day I'm going to share an inspirational quote, or I'm going to call someone and encourage them, or I'm going to record a podcast. Every day I try to add value to people. Every single day I try to grow my network. Hey, who can I meet today that I've never met? Who can I learn from today? I'm always trying to grow my network. And then every day I grew my courage. I think if you're going to grow in life and leadership, life is going to come at you hard. And a skill that you need to get good at is growing your courage. And the only way you can really grow your courage is to go through life daily. And so those are some things that I do every single day to handle today well. And as a result of that, I believe I'm starting to see some compounding take place in my life. I believe my influence is starting to compound in a way that it never has before. Financially, Laura and I's lives are starting to compound in a way that they never have before. Our leadership is starting to compound. Our relationships are compounding. Our family is compounding. And I would say this, that the character decisions that we've continued to make are compounding. All of those things are starting to compound because we did them well each and every day. And so I just want to encourage you, if it doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 40, or 50, here's what I want to tell you. Start today. Start handling today well. And when you handle today well, that's all you ever have to do, because all we can do is live in the present. Handle today well, and tomorrow will take care of itself. At 35, I'm starting to see the compound effect of handling my days well. The second thing I'm observing at 35 is I'm actually observing what life will be like when I'm 55, 60, and 65. And what I'm realizing is that life is very, very short, and I better make a difference. Now, let me go into detail a little bit about what I mean by this. I love spending time with older leaders. I always have. I mean, if you look back on who I interview for the podcast, I spend a lot of times with people towards the end of their leadership journey because they've made all their mistakes, they've learned all their lessons. And so I feel like I can get the most amount of wisdom by watching their life and learning from them. And as I'm starting to look at some of the leaders that I looked up to when they were in their 40s and now they're in their 50s and 60s, I'm observing a lot of things. In fact, I'm going to do an entire podcast lesson called What I'm Learning from Watching Older Leaders. But at 35, here's what I'm learning very, very quickly from them is the next 20 to 30 years of my life are going to go by like that. I am going to blink and be 55 years old. I'll blink again and I'll be 60. I'll blink again and I'll be 65 years old. And here's what I know by watching them. When I'm that old, I am not going to care about most of the things that I care about right now. I'm not going to care how many people I influence. I'm not going to care how many people follow me on Instagram. All I'm going to care about is making a difference. Did I make a difference in the life of someone else? Did I lift someone's life? Did I raise up the next generation of leaders? That's all that's going to matter. So for me, I'm just learning that life is going to go by so quick. And so I have to live each day intentionally to make a difference in the lives of others. The third thing that I'm reflecting on at 35 is this. I'm realizing and learning the importance and the power of rest for the first time in my life. Yes, it took me 35 years to learn that I have to actually slow down, rest, and recover in my life. And specifically, you may have heard me talk about this, but I've been impacted by a book by John Mark Comer called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. It's been the most impactful book that I've read in the last 5 years, and specifically wise because it actually encouraged me and challenged me to take a weekly Sabbath. Now, if you don't know what a weekly Sabbath is, it's just a day off every single week where you don't focus on work or trying to get things done. You just rest, make memories with your family. And I always had heard that it was great to take a Sabbath. I heard that you should take a day off a week, but I never did. Laura and I would take pockets of Sabbath, like, hey, we're not going to do anything for these next 3 hours, but we never took full days. And I read this statement in John Mark Comer's book that changed everything for me, and it's by Dan Allender. He said this about the Sabbath, about taking a day off each week. He said, the Sabbath, when experienced as God intended, is the best day of our lives. Without question or thought, it is the best day of the week. It is the day we anticipate on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and remember on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Sabbath is the holy time where we feast, play, dance, have sex, sing, pray, laugh, tell stories, read, paint, walk, and watch creation in its fullness. Few people are willing to enter the Sabbath and sanctify it, to make it holy, because a full day of delight and joy is more than most people can bear in a lifetime, let alone a week. And for me, why that impacted me so deeply is, if you know me, I'm an Enneagram 7, I'm high energy, I'm go, go, go all the time. And usually to be sold on something, I just need to be sold on the fact of whether or not it's fun. And for me, realizing that a day off could be a complete day of joy and fun changed everything for me. And so I made an entire list in my journal of what I would want to do on my Sabbath. I want to spend time with Laura. I want to spend time playing with the girls. I want to just read for fun and pleasure, not to grow. I want to actually cook meals for my family and all these different things. And all of a sudden I got super fired up about the Sabbath each week. And so I'm not perfect at this, but Laura and I have started Sabbathing, and it is the day that we look forward to the most. It's the day that we make the most memories. It's just awesome. And so leaders, listen, if you've never taken a day off, I can't encourage you enough. Read this book and start implementing a Sabbath in your life. One of the statements that impacted me most in my 20s was something that Rick Warren said. And he said, listen, if you're a leader, you need to divert daily. And he said, listen, divert daily. What he meant by that is, in your daily life, if you work with your mind all day, then you need to go home and do something with your hands. You need to garden. You need to cook dinner. Something. If you work with your hands all day, you do hard labor, then you need to do something with your mind. You need to read a book, etc. Divert daily, withdraw weekly. And again, he emphasized the importance of Sabbath, and this was just something I never did. And then he said you need to abandon annually. Every year you have to go on vacation, leaders. And so I just want to challenge you with those three things. Are you diverting daily? Are you taking a weekly Sabbath? And are you abandoning annually and refreshing yourself? At 35, I am learning the importance of taking time off and resting. The fourth thing that I'm reflecting on at 35 is I am doubling down on the importance of family. I'm doubling down on the importance of family. I'm reading a book that's actually really, really impactful. A recent podcast episode, actually, I was interviewing Brad Cooper, who's the lead pastor at New Spring, and he subtly mentioned this organization called Family Teams, and he said that his family follows it. Now, to preface it, he said, hey, it's not for everybody, but it works for him and his family. So I'm like, I'll check it out. And usually when someone recommends something that I admire, I go all in. So I went all in. I bought all their books, all their stuff, and it is phenomenal. And again, it's called Family Teams. And the main leader of the organization is Jeremy Pryor. And he wrote a book that my wife and I are going through currently called Family Revision. Again, that's Family Revision by Jeremy Pryor. And it is incredible. It's reshaping the way that we look at our family. In fact, it encourages you to look at your family as a team. And so far, what I'm getting out of it is it's allowing your kids to value their family identity more than the identity of their peers. And it's very, very fascinating. And it's giving you structure to build a great family. And so that's just a great resource for you. But more than ever, Laura and I are doubling down on the importance of family. And what that means to me is, one, I want to make it to my family's finish line, right? I want to make it to the finish line. I love seeing matriarchs and patriarchs of families have, 5 kids, have 1,000 grandchildren, and man, they get to see their legacies, and they've lived a long life, they kept their marriage, and they have this legacy behind them. I want to make it to my family finish line. I want to make it to my 70s, 80s, 90s, however long God allows me to live, and just look back on a legacy of faithfulness in our family. And so I want to make it to our finish line. 2, I want my family to be my greatest legacy. I don't want L3 to be my greatest legacy. I don't want my leadership to be my greatest legacy. I want my greatest legacy to be the family that I invested in and grew and developed here on earth. And then lastly, I want those closest to me to love and respect me the most, right? I don't care who admires me in the outside world. If Olivia, Sophia, and Laura aren't my biggest fans and don't love me the most, then I've failed in life. And so I'm redefining how I define success at 35 with family, and that is making those who are closest to me love and respect me the most. The 5th thing I'm reflecting on at 35 is I believe I'm moving from leadership theory to leadership practice. At 35, I'm moving from leadership theory to leadership practice. And, I started a leadership organization when I was 27 years old, a leadership development organization. And I'm sure that there were some seasoned leaders being like, really, this kid's starting a leadership group? And I think that's fair. But I just had a heart to add value to leaders. And, I've been consistently trying to grow in leadership for 17 years. And in 2018, I probably took on my first real leadership position. And man, was it tough. It was a year and a half of growth that I don't know that I'd want to relive that year and a half, but I'm very grateful that I took the position and actually grew. Why? Because I believed that transition helped me move from theory to practice. Now, let me say, I'm glad I had the theory. I'm glad that I spent all of those years investing in my leadership development on the front end, because then when I actually stepped into the arena, I actually had something to draw from. It wasn't just starting from scratch. So leaders, let me just tell you this, whether you have a leadership role, whether you want one, wherever you are in your leadership journey, always focus on being developed, not discovered. I'll say it again. Only focus on being developed, not discovered. So many young leaders, I want to be this in this position. I want to be discovered. I have so much potential. Just grow. If you get good, you'll have the position. If you get good, you'll be allowed into the game. You'll be in the arena. But just get good. Just get good where you are and develop. Realize that for a long time, you just live in the land of theory. But if you'll be faithful, and go back to my first point of just handling today well, if you'll grow today in your leadership, one day you'll have an opportunity to put that leadership into practice. And that's when you'll move from theory to practice. And I believe, as many of you know, I was going to go full-time with L3 2 years ago, and then God really dealt with me to take on this new role at Light of Life. And the primary reason I feel like God wanted me to do that was so he could develop me and actually give me things that I could talk about from a practical level versus just a theoretical level. So I'm moving from leadership theory to leadership practice. The 6th thing I'm reflecting on at 35 is I believe God is giving me something to say. God's giving me something to say. I already mentioned this, but when I was 30, God spoke to me. He said, Doug, in your 20s, I gave you a foundation to build your life on. In your 30s, I'm going to give you something to say. And in your 40s, I'll give you the platform to say it. So a few things I want to talk to you about there. One, I think everyone wants something to say, but nobody wants to go through what they have to go through to have something to say. Everyone in our culture wants something to say, but they're not willing to go through the pain, growth, and development it takes to have something to say. And that's why I think there's so many people talking today, but they literally have nothing significant to say. And so, again, leaders, be patient, right? Be patient and let God develop you and let him give you something to say through your leadership development journey. Again, focus on being developed, not discovered. Get something to say. Don't just say something because you think you have something to say. The 7th thing I'm reflecting on at 35 is that I'm realizing very, very quickly that life and leadership are hard, and there are times where I want to give up and that I want to stop growing, but I must continue and I must endure to the end. I've been saying this for over a decade, but I want to make it to my leadership finish line. And my pastor and one of my mentors always said he believes only about 2% of Christian leaders make it to the end of their leadership journey. I want to be one of those 2%. I want to make it all the way to the finish line. And yes, there's some character decisions that need to be made in order for that to happen. But what I'm realizing is probably more than anything, there's a tenacity that has to come with that. And if you follow along on the podcast, I just interviewed Sam Chan, who wrote the most influential leadership book that I've read in the last year. Now, I'll just say this as a side note. My friend Greg Fear called me out and he said, Doug, I listen to your podcast all the time. You always say whatever book you mention is the best book you've ever read. So for context, and for those of you who track things like that, I don't know why you do, but the most impactful book I've read in the last 5 years, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. The best leadership book I've read in the last 2 years is Leadership Pain by Sam Chan. There is a difference. Boom. Two things can be the best. Anyway, total side note. let's dive back in. But Sam Chan, he wrote this book called Leadership Pain. And basically his thesis was that you'll only grow in leadership to the level of your threshold of pain. And he said that he did an entire study on leaders of successful corporate leaders, successful church leaders, nonprofit leaders, and he was trying to decipher what separates people who keep growing and keep growing and keep growing, and those who get stuck and just hit a lid in their lives. And he thought it was going to be leadership. He thought it was going to be administration or strategy. But the number one factor that he found in what separates leaders who make it, leaders who don't, is their ability to handle pain and more pain. Because leadership is hard. Leadership is full of painful moments, and it's full of moments where you're going to want to throw in the towel and quit. Don't quit. Just in this past December, I wanted to quit L3 leadership. I wanted literally to throw in the towel. I had a meeting with my wife, Laura, and we were going to talk about the vision for 2020 and L3, and she was so excited, and I sat down for coffee, and I couldn't even look at her. I was looking at the ground. I said, Laura, I am done. I am throwing in the towel. I have no energy. I can't do this. What are we doing? And literally I couldn't even finish the conversation. I just got out, stood up and walked out and went in the car. And literally our planning date, which we got babysitters for, lasted 10 minutes. And Laura was obviously upset. She spent time with God the next day, and God spoke to her through the story of Peter when he was fishing all night in the Bible. And Peter was fishing all night, toiling all night, and he didn't catch anything. Right. And then he in the morning, Jesus comes and he said, Peter, throw back in your nets. And Peter said, but Lord, we've toiled all night. We're master fishermen. We know what we're doing, and we didn't catch anything. But nonetheless, at your word, we'll throw them back in. And they threw in their nets, and they caught a harvest they couldn't contain. And Laura looked at me and she said, Doug, this doesn't make sense. I know you're burnt out. I know you want to quit, but I feel like God's telling us to throw back in the nets. Let's throw them back in. But this time, not in your strength. It's not about your ability. We got to depend on God and his strength and his ability. And I felt like that was from God. And I said, okay, God, we'll throw back in the nets, and I will be fully dependent on you. And all kind of great things happened as a result of throwing back in my nets. And so, leader, maybe you need to hear that today. Throw your nets back in. Don't quit. The eighth thing I'm learning and reflecting on at 35 is I am more passionate about adding value to people than I've ever been. Literally, every single day I wake up excited. How can I lift someone's life today? How can I challenge someone to go further? How can I challenge people in a way that they need challenged character-wise? How can I check in on people? I love waking up every single day, adding value to people. And what I'm most excited about through adding value to people is what we're doing here at L3 Leadership. We have this podcast. Now we're starting to do all kind of live streams. I'm so excited. We brought Will on board, who's here with me. He is incredible and taking us to the next level. So we will continue to add value to you through content. We recently revamped our entire membership platform. We're doing monthly webinars with nationally known leaders. We just had Carrie Newhoff invest in our members. It was incredible. We have mastermind groups that are going to be relaunching. We believe that every leader needs to be in a mastermind group. And so we're going to be providing mastermind groups that you can grow and develop in, and it will take your life and leadership to the next level. We're partnering with the Pittsburgh Leadership Foundation to put together a leaders collaborative that will launch in the fall. It'll be a 3-month leadership program for you to elevate the effectiveness of your leadership. And then we have our L3 one-day leadership conference, which we had to postpone due to COVID-19 this year, but was looking like we're going to have our conference this September. So stay tuned for details on that. But I'm more passionate than ever about adding value to people. And I hope that one day when I'm looking back on this lesson when I'm 65, that I'm just as passionate then as I am now. The ninth thing that I'm reflecting on, and this has been a constant in my life for the past 12 years, but at 35, health and fitness are a huge priority for me. And what I eat is more important than it's ever been. And again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, leaders, but let me just say this. Please take care of yourself. Please move every day, work out every day. Please eat right? The older you get, and I'm only 35, man, it's crazy how much what you eat can impact your energy, your body, how you feel, how productive you are, etc. So if you've never prioritized your health and fitness, please, leaders, I'm begging you. If you want to make it to your finish line, you must prioritize that. Not just once in a while, all the time, for the rest of your life. Just make the commitment. And then the last thing that I'm reflecting on at 35 is I'm very, very grateful to be living out my purpose. I was having a chat with our team at Light of Life the other day, and one of the questions that I asked just for a conversation was, what's your favorite part of your job? And it was, for me, it was reflecting on the fact that there hasn't been a day in the past 9 years with what I do at Light of Life Rescue Mission and what I do here at L3 Leadership that I haven't woken up extremely fired up about what I'm going to do. Now, that doesn't mean there haven't been challenging days. That doesn't mean there were days where I didn't want to quit. But I can tell you this, usually the times where I want to quit is because I don't think I'm going to be able to go where I want to go with the purpose. But here's what I know. If God's called you, if God's put a vision in your heart, God wants you to do what he wants you to do more than you want to do what God wants you to do. And so he'll get you there. He'll get you there in his timing. So that's where you have to trust him. But here's where I want to challenge you, leaders. It doesn't matter if you're 25, 35, 45, 55, are you living out your purpose? And listen, where you are right now, you might not be able to live your full purpose out in the vocation that you have. But I want to challenge you to evaluate your life, because this life is going to go like that. You're going to be 45, 55, 65, 75 in the blink of an eye. And you're either going to look back on your life and say, I lived every day fulfilling the plan of God and purpose for my life, or you're going to say, I gave my life to a job just so I could live in a bigger house, or I gave my life to a job just so I could have a title to feel good about myself. If you are in a season where you're just saying, I hate every day of my life, I don't feel like I have any purpose, stop. Evaluate your life and do something. Find whatever it takes to be living in your purpose, discover your purpose, and live it every day. I'm telling you, there's no more fulfilling life. I know it's been said often, but when you're doing something you love, you really do never work a day in your life. And that's how I feel. I don't feel like I've had to work a day in my life over the last 9 years. So, leader, this is me at 35 years old. Future Doug watching this. This is me at 35 years old. I would encourage you, I don't know how old you are if you're watching or listening to this, but take some time at your next birthday and reflect. Where are you in your life? What are you thinking about? What are you reflecting on? And I think that you'll find that a valuable exercise. So thanks for allowing me to come into your life and leadership journey again this week, and we'll be back again with another great episode next week. See ya. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Henny Jewelers. They're a jeweler owned by my friend and mentor, John Henny. My wife, Laura, and I both got our engagement and our wedding rings at Henny Jewelers, and we absolutely love them. Not only do they have great jewelry, but they also invest in people. In fact, they give every engaged couple a book to help them prepare for their marriage, and we just love that. And so if you're in need of a good jeweler, check out Henny Jewelers at hennyjewelers.com. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, BAB Inc. BAB is an insurance broker, a third-party administrator, and consulting firm led by my friend and mentor, Russell Livingston. Russell is extremely passionate about developing the next generation of leaders, which is why he's partnering with us on this podcast, and he's also opened up his offices here in Pittsburgh to host our monthly leadership events, and we are extremely grateful for that. The nonprofit that I work at, Light of Life Rescue Mission, started using BAB as our insurance broker around 3 years ago, and we've had an unbelievable experience with them, and we highly recommend them. So if you or your organization has any insurance needs, please check out and learn more about BAB at babbins.com. That's BABBINS.com. Hey leader, thank you so much for listening to my lesson on life at 35. I hope it added value to you. And if it did, it would mean the world to me if you would share it on social media. Let me know what your key takeaway was. And if you have time, leave a rating and review on iTunes. That helps us grow our audience and reach more leaders. So thank you in advance for that. And as always, I like to end with a quote, and I'll quote Gerald Brooks today, who I think I just quote pretty much every day because it's the best. And he said this, he said, someone else's successes should never discourage your opportunities. That is so good. Someone else's success should never discourage your opportunities. Hey, leader, thank you so much for allowing us to come into your life and leadership journey again. Laura and I love and appreciate you so much, and we will talk to you next episode.